Good morning, friends. Welcome back to my channel. This is going to be day 2. So day 2, if you can see on the thumbnail, we're going to go through Genesis 4 through 6. And what I'm going to do in my video is I'm going to do part 1. I'm going to read. If you don't want to read along with me, go ahead and skip. I'm going to try to make timestamps so that way you guys know when I get to part 2. Part 2, I'm going to go through and highlight things that are important to me. And part 3, I'm going to go through the notes. These are freebies that I have linked directly in the description. So what I want to make available for everybody is that this is day 2. This is for the quick notes. If you guys are following along with the quick notes, we're going to go through these topics, which covers the Cain murders Abel, the descendants of Cain, the birth of Seth, a world gone wrong, and the story of Noah, just the little tidbit beginning of the story of Noah. And then for the deeper study, I did create a page that you can print on the back of page 1 on your deeper study day 1. So you can print this out how you want. Remember, each thing will not have a back. You have to put it through your printer the way that you want it to be printed, because each day is going to be its own page. So if you want them all separated, just, print them as is. If you want them to be back to back, you'll have to run it through how your printer prints out. So this is the deeper study, and this will give, you can fill this out. You have notes and then a little bit about Noah. So let's go ahead and begin. Let me go ahead and put this away so we can just do the simple reading. And I'm going to try to edit this video as best as I can. I apologize for the first video. I lost everything and was unable to edit due to the losing of everything. So let me see if I can zoom in to make this a little bit easier for you guys to follow along. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold a pencil or a pen next to where I'm reading to help me. And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived. Now, knowing somebody in the Bible is to have sexual relations with them. And she bare Cain and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. And again she bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of the sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And in the process of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. Make sure that's in thing. And Abel he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof. And the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering, but unto Cain and his offering he had not respect. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. So Cain knows what he's supposed to be doing. He knows what God wants from him. And Cain wants to do his own self-righteousness here at this point, and God is not allowing it. God's rejecting it. And so this is making Cain very angry. He's becoming bitter. And you'll see why Cain does what he does. But we have to, again, remember that this is all after the fall of man. This is when sin is in the earth. And this is directly after their parents sinned in the garden and were kicked out. So these children of Adam and Eve never got the chance to grow up in the Garden of Eden. Okay, let me see. And the Lord said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth, and why is thy countenance falling? If thou dost well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou dost not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. And Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up and slew him. Now slewing him means that he murdered him. And the Lord said unto Cain, Where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? So Cain is lying to the Lord. God knows where Abel is. God knows what happened. God saw it. God is giving Cain a chance to tell the truth and to be honest with him about what he did. And he said, What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth from me from the ground. So he's saying that Abel's blood is crying out to God from the ground, because obviously when you kill somebody and they're bleeding to death, there's going to be blood everywhere. And so the blood went into the ground and was crying out to the Lord. And now art thou cursed from the earth, So this is why God curses Cain. Cain and his whole bloodline, from what I can tell in the Bible, is cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. And when thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shall be in the earth. And Cain said unto the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from the face shall I be hid. And I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth, and it shall come to pass that every one that findeth me shall slay me. So Cain is very afraid. So when he's talking about everyone, obviously there's people on the earth. There's obviously time has passed where Adam and Eve were able to create enough children that they had children, and at least they were able, I'm pretty sure that these were the first two children, but it doesn't mean that they didn't have siblings. They definitely had siblings, but I'm saying that these siblings were adults, and as we know, they were the only people on the earth, so they had to marry each other, but it was okay because their bloodlines were pure enough to do that, and that was okay back then. Okay. And the Lord said unto him, where thou whatsoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. So God is telling him, if somebody takes vengeance out on you, I'm going to take vengeance out on that person 7 times of what you would have received. And the Lord said, set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. So I'm wondering if this is kind of like a mark in his hand or his forehead, or a mark somewhere on his body that people can see on a day-to-day basis, that is like a warning of God saying, don't touch him, because if you do, 7 times the punishment will be given to you if you take vengeance out on him for what he did to Abel. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt into the land of Nod on the east of Eden. So they are around Eden somewhere. They're around it, but they are not allowed in it, because remember, the flaming the cherubim with the flaming swords was at the doorway or the gate of Eden, and they can't get in it anyways. And Cain knew his wife. Again, we were talking about he had sexual relations with her, and she conceived and bare Enoch. And he built a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. And unto Enoch was born Irad, and Irad begat. We're going to get into generations here. If you want to skip, go ahead and skip. This is kind of hard to get through. Irad begat Mahulahel, and Mahulahel begat Methusael, and Methusael begat Lamech, and Lamech took unto him 2 wives. The name of one was Ada, and the name of the other Zillah. Now, this is the first time that I've ever seen where a man has taken more than one wife. And through the Bible, you're going to see that that was never a good idea, even though it wasn't against, specifically, I don't believe it was against what God wanted, but there was always jealousy problems. There was always problems with, just like it was too much. And so it's the first time I've seen where somebody has taken more than one wife. And Ada bare Jabal, and he was the father of such and dwelt in tents, and such as have cattle. And his brother's name was... So as you can see, he's making a great city for himself. He's building up a nation. He's building up a city. They have tent makers, so people that can build. That's the children that Cain is bearing. So it says, and his brother's name was Jubal, and he was the father of all such as handle of the harp and organ. So this is where the beginning of the instruments come about. It comes through Cain's family. And Zillah also bare Tubal-Cain, the instructor of every artificer in brass and iron. So Tubal-Cain makes everything that, like the horns, everything that was made of brass and iron came from Tubal-Cain, came from Cain's line in the family. And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. And Lamech said unto his wives, Ada and Zillah, Hear my voice, you wives of Lamech, hearken unto my speech, for I have slain a man to my wounding, and a young man to my hurt. So this is another murder through Cain's family. So Cain's son told his wives that he slew a young man. He slain a man to my wounding, and a young man to my hurt. And Cain shall be avenged he's saying if Cain was avenged sevenfold, truly Lamech 70 and sevenfold. So he's like multiplying it by 70, or he's multiplying it by 7 or 11. I think he's multiplying it by 7. I think 70 and sevenfold is 77. I'll have to look that up. And Adam knew his wife again. So even after the adults were all born, Adam was still, procreating with his wife. And then God gives them a new child that does replace and take the part of Abel. Because of what Cain did, God always makes a backup plan, because he knows that humans are going to fall and that his way is always perfect. And so he is always going to provide a way. When we fall, he's always going to provide a backup plan. And so, and Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son and called his name Seth. For God said, She had appointed me another seed instead of Abel, and another seed is her child, whom Cain slew. And to Seth, to him also there was born a son, and he called his name Enos, and began men to call upon the name of the Lord. So Seth's family was righteous. They were calling upon the name of the Lord. So he was teaching his sons to follow and walk with God. And his sons were teaching his sons to follow and walk with God. Very, very important, because through this line, you're going to see where the flood comes in and Noah is saved through the line of Seth. Okay, so chapter 5. This is the book of the generations of Adam. And the day that God created man in the likeness of God made he him, male and female created he them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam in the day when they were created. And Adam lived 130 years, and he begat a son in his likeness after his image, and called his name Seth. And the days of Adam after he had gotten Seth were 800 years, and he begat sons and daughters. So back then, these people were living 8, 9, 7 centuries. These people are very old. Can you imagine talking with these people and getting to know? Can you imagine how fast technology and knowledge was increasing even back in this time? They weren't dumb. They were not cavemen. They knew a lot of things. They were very smart people. But they just some chose to follow God, some chose not to follow God. But we have instruments, we have cities, we have nations being built. And I think it's just really cool. But do you know how we can talk to our grandparents and just ask them how things were back then? Can you imagine asking your grandpa Adam what it was like to be in the Garden of Eden? I would have loved to ask that question. And then, let me see. And all the days of Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. And Seth lived 805 years and begat Enos. And Seth lived after he begat Enos 807 years and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Seth were 912 years, and he died. And Enos lived 90 years and begat Canaan. So these people are very, very old when they're starting to have children. Now, the reason why God let them live such a long life, I believe, was so that way we could replenish the earth very quickly. Like he said in the beginning, he wanted them to procreate. And Enos lived after he begat Cain 815 years and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Enos were 905 years, and he died. And Canaan lived 70 years and begat Mahalaleel. And Canaan lived after he begat Mahalaleel 840 years and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Canaan were 910 years, and he died. And Mahalaleel lived 65 years and begat Jared. And Mahalaleel lived after he begat Jared 830 years and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Mahalaleel were 895 years, and he died. And Jared lived after he begat Enoch 800 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Jared were 962 years, and he died. And Enoch lived 65 years, and begat Methuselah. Okay, so this is important, Methuselah. And Enoch walked with God after he begat Methuselah 300 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Enoch were 365 years. So 365 years, that's pretty cool. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Enoch did not die a physical death. God literally raptured him right out of the earth and took him to himself where God was. And now I'm thinking at that point it was paradise, but I am not 100% sure. We will learn about that as we go on. And Methuselah lived 187 years and begat Lamech. And Methuselah lived after he begat Lamech 782 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. And Lamech lived 182 years, and begat a son. And he called his name Noah, saying, This same shall comfort us concerning our work and toil of our hands, because of the ground which the Lord has cursed. So it's almost like, because these people are walking and talking with God, God is telling them what's going to be happening. Now, I believe that God took Enoch out because Enoch would have had a chance to create more people, and he was going to change things because the world was getting too bad. And I don't really know if part of the world was getting bad from the people of Seth, because all of the people were gone and they were dead at this point, except for Noah. But I believe that Enoch was raptured out, because if he wouldn't have been, he would have still been alive when Noah was born. And when Noah had to go into the flood, through the flood. Okay, where were we? And Lamech lived after he begat Noah 595 years, and he begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. And Noah was 500 years old, and Noah begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So if you go through the descendants and you calculate up how long these people lived, you can figure out how many years of space happened between when Seth was born and when his great, however many great grandsons, Noah was born. So that's kind of like a history lesson, and that would be fun for people that love numbers. So if you want, you can write that down in your notes. And so now we're on chapter 6. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives for all which they chose. Now, some people believe that the sons of God were angels that fell, and some people believe that the sons of God were men from Seth's line, or from Cain's line, that were taking the daughters of Seth's line, and they were multiplying with them, and it's not what God wanted. God did not want them to mix. He did not want the people that followed and walked with God mixing the people that were not following and walking with God. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man. So he's basically saying that, so these people have access to God's spirit. I'm wondering if it's like, I'm not sure how I'm going to say that. With man, for that he is also flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. So, okay, so this is why they were living a long time. So God is saying, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he is also flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. He's shortening the lifespan now of man. This is very important to know this. He's going to be shortening the lifespan. It didn't happen until after Noah was born and after the flood, but he talks about that he's going to be doing it. So there were giants in the earth on those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, which the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. So now we're having extreme sin, extreme evilness, and God didn't like it. There was no good on the earth. There was absolutely nothing good except for Noah. And so it repented the Lord. So repented means it changed his mind about what he had made. So it repented the Lord that he had made man on this earth, and it grieved him at his heart. It was hurting him. Can you imagine as a parent, these are his children. This is his creation of which he had made. And it doesn't matter how good he raised them up and what he taught them. They have free will. And this is people have free will. Our children have free will. They're going to do what they want to do. You can either walk with God or not walk with God. And you can either accept God as your Savior or not accept God as your Savior. And it hurts God when we don't follow him. And the Lord said, I will destroy man from whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast. So he's talking about the animals, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repented me that I have made them. So he's thinking he's just going to do, remember, God always has a plan for when we mess up. So he's like, I'm going to have a plan. We're going to change things. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. And these are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations. That does not mean that Noah did not mess up. When we get to perfect in the Bible, it means that Noah walked with God, and he knew God, and he believed who God was, and he believed that God was the creation of all man. And so in God's eyes, that made him perfect, because God wiped away any and all sin that Noah would have had. Okay? And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth was also corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. I can't imagine how bad this must have been. It's not even this bad now, but it was that bad back then that God had to destroy it. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make thee an ark of gopher wood, rooms shall thou make in the ark, and thou shalt pitch it within and without with pitch. So he's telling Noah, I want you to make this ark, and I'm going to give you the exact instructions on how to do it. I want you to put pitch inside of it, and I want you to put pitch outside of it. So this pitch is a waterproof solution, so that way they did not sink. And this is the fashion which thou shalt make of it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. You can look online and see how many feet or meters big cubits were, and you can kind of make if you want, you guys can make a drawing and a scale and see how big the ark was, or find a photo online, print it out, and put it in your book of facts about the ark. And windows shall thou make to the ark, and in a cubit shall thou finish it above. So he's saying the window, I want you to make it in on the very top of the ark. So it was not a door, it was on the top of the ark. And the door of the ark shall thou set on the side. So the window was on the top and the door was on the side. With lower, second, and third stories shall thou make it. So he's telling him that not only will you make an ark, but you're going to make an ark with floors and these stories, and I'm going to tell you what to put on each floor. And behold, I do bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life, from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. So he's telling Noah, I'm going to bring this flood. It's going to destroy everything. You better build this ark, and you better save your family, and you better listen to my instructions on it so that you can survive. But with thee I will establish my covenant, A covenant is a promise that God will not change. God is making a covenant with Noah. And thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons, and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. So he's going to save Noah's entire family. And every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort, shall keep thou bring into the ark to keep them with thee. They shall be male and female. So the reason why he's bringing 1 male and 1 female, God is going to direct these animals. Adam doesn't have to go out and fetch animals. Or not Adam. Noah does not have to go out and fetch the animals. Noah has to just simply build the ark. God is going to be bringing these animals to Noah, and Noah is going to allow them on the ark. 1 is male, 1 is female. Why? Because they need to procreate. Of fowls after their kind, and cattle after their kind, of every creeping thing in the earth after its kind, 2 of every sort shall come unto thee to keep them alive. So these are the animals that are going to procreate, and we're going to keep them alive through this flood and let them do what they need to do. And thou take unto thee of all food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and shall be for food for thee and for them. So he's telling Noah, you're going to have to gather the seed for these animals, not only for the animals, but you're going to have to gather the seed and the food for your family. And you're going to have to put it on the ark, and you're going to have to store it. And Noah did according to all that God commanded him, so did he. So I know that sometimes reading through the Bible can be a little bit sleepy, a little bit boring. And I know that my voice is kind of raspy and is not the best voice to read or teach, but I really want to, go over this with you guys. And so we're going to get to part 2. Hang in with me, and I'm going to go ahead and highlight some things in my Bible. I'm just going to speed through this. I'm going to show you how I highlight the notes in my Bible, and you guys can just follow along with me if you want. You can highlight what you deem is important, and you don't have to follow anything I do. I just highlighted the word new, and I said that was a sexual relation. And in verse 5, I highlighted that, and I said God knew Cain's heart. Cain knew what God required, and he chose his own self-righteousness. Chapter 4, verse 9, I highlighted, and I wrote a note that says God gives Cain a chance to be truthful. Chapter 4, verse 15, I highlighted, and I said God warned others not to kill Cain, and I also squared out the mark upon Cain. And I highlighted verse 16, and I said God knew Cain's heart, and Cain knew what God required, but he chose to follow his own self-righteousness. And I said he no longer walked with God. And in verse 19, I highlighted, and I said the first one to marry into polygamy was Lamech. And I highlighted verse 21 and verse 22, and I wrote a note of creation of instruments. I highlighted verse 23 and said that Lamech was the second person to murder that we know of. I highlighted verse number 25, and I wrote out the note that Seth became Abel's replacement. I highlighted verse number 26, and I wrote Seth and his sons followed the Lord. I highlighted chapter 5, verse 1 for the generations, and I wrote on a sticky note, and I said, From the creation of Adam to the birth of Noah, there were 10 generations, and from the creation of Adam to the birth of Noah, 1,056 years passed. God had to destroy what he created due to men not following God and the state of the world. God was so heartbroken over what men were choosing to do. In chapter 5, at verse 24, I highlighted that and I wrote a note that says the first rapture of Enoch. I highlighted chapter 5 at verse 29 and I wrote a note that says they knew through Noah God had a plan, because remember they walked with God. Noah's family walked with God. And in chapter 6, I highlighted verse 2, and I said the sons of God and the daughters of men, and I put a question mark because that's something that I need to study more for my own. I highlighted verse 3, and I wrote that God shortens the lifespans. I highlighted the word evil continually, and I put a sad face, and then I highlighted the word repented, and I said that God changed his mind. I highlighted chapter 6, verse 9, and I wrote, and he was perfect because he walked with God. God said that Noah was perfect, not because Noah was a perfect person. It was simply because of the fact that Noah walked with God. And God found that to be perfect just simply because he did that. And so I went ahead and highlighted the description of the ark, and I wrote, and I put a little sticky note on top of it that was a drawing of what I kind of calculated the ark to be. And then I highlighted verse number 17, and I said all life not in the ark were going to die. And then I highlighted verse 18, and I said a covenant is God's promise, and God promised to save Noah and his family. And then in verse 22, I highlighted it and I said, Noah listened and... All right, friends, that's the end of day 2. Let's go ahead and see what we were able to do so far. I'm just showing you what I have. For those that didn't get to see the ark a little bit better, I did put this on clear. I probably should have just drew it on something else, but I didn't. So I will show you what that looks like. Just keep that underneath. But I did highlight the information about the ark and just put that I think, like, if it was divided into thirds, the ceilings would have been 14 foot tall on each floor. That's really high. But here's what it looks like at the end of day 2. And for those of you guys that really want me to add the study notes that I made for you guys to print out, I can try to do that in a video. I was concerned that it might be too long, and I will try to make sure that I add timestamps to the video description as well, so that way you guys can go through the reading if you're not wanting to read together. So I want you guys to all have a wonderful and blessed day, and thank you for joining me on my video. Bye.